I just can't. Okay. Steve from Alabama. You're talking
Hello.
to Eric and V. Hi, how are you doing?
Hey, Steve.
I'm all right.
What would you like to talk about? Because I am off in left field right now. Bring me back, Steve.
Okay. Well, the first question I have is: do you believe in life after death?
No.
Okay. So then, do you believe that life is something like a dream? Then?
No.
I mean, when I wake up in the mornings, my dreams are over. They're done.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you die, you think that life is just, that's it, it's over?
Yeah.
Yes.
So then life isn't real.
No.
No.
It is.
Life is not real.
Steve, did you have breakfast this morning?
Sure.
Are you still eating breakfast? Is breakfast still happening?
Well, no.
Okay. Was your breakfast real?
But the food was real.
Right.
The food was real.
Yeah.
The food is real.
Exactly.
It's still real.
Agreed. And that, I mean, yeah. So let's break this down a little bit because I feel like it's kind of flying a little bit. So first off, life after death.
I'm not saying that life is a dream. That's not what I'm trying to. It's
No.
That life is an imagination.
No, I want to dig into this life after death.
It doesn't have any
value.
Okay.
I think is what you're going.
Value, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So let's talk about value first off, and then let's talk about the soul, because those are two things that are incredibly important to me. I think the soul is much easier to start with.
Okay.
I challenge you to give me one characteristic of a soul that you can show me. One.
Of a soul.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Does it have a personality? Are there preferences?
It has potential. I mean, I see life as the soul of a person. I mean, that's the same one and the same thing. I think.
I don't, because when you're talking about a soul, generally, when you're talking about what we culturally understand as a soul, you're talking about something that is completely, entirely separate from the body, that operates the body, or is a necessary component of a body. Correct?
Okay. Right.
Okay. So.
Well, the only thing that it's not physical. It's a non-physical. I mean, we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't tell you anything about it. I guess.
Okay.
I mean,
so
other than it's not physical.
Okay. So you couldn't tell me anything about it. It's not physical.
Other than it's not physical.
But you know it exists.
No, I don't know it. I don't know it. I believe it, but I don't know it. I mean, there's no proof of anything. I mean, how do you check something that's not physical? There's no way to detect it in any way.
Well, so there are abstract concepts that exist that are not physical, right? So we can talk about numbers, and just because we talk about the number one does not mean that there's a physical one in existence somewhere because we're talking about it. It's an idea. It's something that we create to be able to understand things, right? So we can absolutely understand things that aren't real in that way, but in that exact example, that number one does not exist in an actual physical space, right? So when you're talking about the idea of a soul, you're putting all of these things out, and you're saying, that it is necessary, and yet, when asked, you're unable to give any indication or way. It's indefensible. I mean, so do you know what falsifiability is?
Yeah, I understand the concept of falsifiability. It's something that can't be tested.
Well, yeah, close enough. So what you've given is an unfalsifiable claim. Is there a way to falsify that claim?
No.
Well,
there's not.
People have tried. There are people who have weighed bodies before and after death to see if there's a detectable difference in the weight of a soul, right?
Yeah.
We've explored traumatic brain injuries where people have had major things happen to their brains, and all of these things that we think are cornerstones of who we are have changed, right? You are not your favorite ice cream. Those things change. the way you treat people, all of those things have been mapped to physical things in your body. And so what you're left with is nothing left to give to a soul. There's nothing there. And if there's absolutely nothing there, and there's no explanation for it, and there's no way to prove it, then why believe it?
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. The question is life real, though? Is it real? Is it real?
Well, so that's a little bit different, and I'm happy to go into that. I just want to close the chapter on talking about the soul first. So we'll put a pin in that because I'm not trying to get you off track, but I do want to ask you, what is left for the soul? Why would you believe something if there's nothing there? I mean, there's more reason to believe the Loch Ness Monster, because at least we could say the Loch Ness Monster looks like this and has behaved like this and is in this lake.
Well, that's one. Well, okay. There again, I mean, if you can't, there's no way to test for it. You're right. I mean, there's nothing that you can do, nothing that can be looked at, nothing that no test. It is no way of knowing in any way, shape, or form.
So
whether there is a soul.
So why accept it at all, Steve?
Because life and the soul are tied together.
Well, so, okay.
I believe.
Is it possible?
I believe that.
Right? I'm going to give you nihilism here. Is it possible that you exist in this universe without cause, without distinct purpose, and that when you die, it's over? Is that possible?
I think there is a purpose for every life.
I'm not asking you about purpose.
For everything that's alive.
But
cool.
Is it possible?
That's a great philosophy. I asked you, is it possible? We're looking at the table of things to choose from. I'm asking you if that's on the table.
I guess you could say. I mean, I can't say nothing is impossible.
Sure, you
I guess.
can.
I mean, is it possible?
Well, no. So that's there's this idea that if it wasn't designed, it had to be random. No. I can jump off my balcony 10,000 times and I'm going to hit the floor every single time. There's not going to be one time where I'm going to fly away like Superman. There are things that we can determine are impossible, right? When we talk about morality, the example that I've given is that in a given situation, there are only so many things you can do. You're standing outside of a burning house. You can go in, you can go home, you can stand outside and call the police. You can do whatever. You can't teleport to Vienna. Because of that, you are limited in your possibilities. And so if we're looking at that limit of possibilities, I want to make sure that in that subset of things, you have this idea of everlasting life in a soul. And I get that. So what I'm trying to figure out is how you've determined that is true, separate from the idea and why the idea that we just exist. Like,
okay.
Is it because it's scary?
No.
Okay, that's good.
No, it's not that it's scary.
So why?
Okay, why what?
Why?
Exactly.
Sure. So why accept the idea that? Sorry, I'm going back to a soul again. V, you want to hop in?
Yeah. So I think what we're asking is, okay, so you're saying that you think that that we have souls and that they are connected to the concept of life, and that because we have souls, there is an afterlife where the souls continue to exist. Is that right?
I think that life is real. I think that life is real.
Well, so do I.
The soul is,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So when you die, then what happens to life? See, because
you really die.
The body doesn't cease to exist. The body doesn't cease to exist, though.
No, it breaks down into its component parts until the definition of it is no longer a body.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a body, but whatever the body is made of, it's still real.
Yeah.
Right.
So what real thing are you talking about that is unexplainable, unseeable, untestable, undoable, but definitely real? How?
It's not physical. There's no way of knowing.
Okay,
There's
wait.
no way to test that's undetectable.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
So let's talk about the body like a machine, even though that is problematic in some areas.
Sure.
Okay, so pretend that you have a car.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're driving your car, right? And then the car dies, right? The battery
Right.
runs out, you're out of gas, no way to bring it back. That car is then scrapped for parts, right? Or condensed, crushed into a little cube or whatever they do.
Right. Right.
Is that still, like, your car is dead? You don't have that car anymore. You had the car, you used the car was working, and then it wasn't, and now it is scrap metal, right?
Well, it doesn't look like a car. What the car is made out of, what's there is real. It always is real. It's there. It's still there. You don't get rid of the atom.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that a car is nothing more than a pile of atoms, just a grouping of atoms.
Okay.
Those don't. I mean, that's what I'm saying. What's real is real.
Yeah. I agree with you.
It has to have it has some solidity, some substance. There's something there.
Except for the thing that you're telling me exists.
I'm not saying that there's not something there. There's just no way to detect it.
Okay. So
How
then
do you detect something that is undetectable?
Well, the time to accept something is when you can, Steve. Why don't you pray to every god possible, everyone imaginable? How come don't wear?
That's different. That's different.
So
that's different.
Well,
that's different.
I'll get you to there. Why I'm saying that? Because if we should be accepting things without evidence that points to it, then we're going to need to believe every single religion, all of them. Why not? We can't. We're not testing it, but we're just taking it on face value and going, okay, I'm going to believe it. You know what? Actually,
no. I don't think so.
If I told you I wanted to sell you some land in the desert, I mean, there has to be some part of you that has some skepticism. Skepticism is an important thing. It's making sure that you don't get completely pulled in and scammed and taken advantage of. And right now, I see what looks to me like a glaring place where someone can fit their way into that line of thinking and take advantage of you. That's why this is important to me. I'm not trying to be an asshole. That's why it's important.
No.
So that.
Good luck with that one. I mean.
Well, Steve, hold on a second. You are presenting that we should be accepting something that is unexplainable, with zero qualities, with zero evidence, and impossible to, I mean, can I sell you a soul? Does a soul have value? I'll sell you my soul. Does that work? Would you buy it?
Would I buy it? No.
Why not? Well, if it doesn't have value, is it like? I'm trying to determine, where like, you're giving something that does not exist value. And so I just asked you a version of that. Is it worth money?
That's the question. Well, see, now that really is the question. If life isn't real.
Hold on. Who in this conversation thinks life isn't real?
Well, your body is real, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. If your life does your life cease to exist?
Yes.
Yes.
Where is the life? Then if life then death is death, the separation. You see?
Got it.
If
okay.
life ceases to exist, then it's not real.
No. So now I get it. Thank you. You have described it in a way that I have caught on. Steve, you're viewing life as a thing. We view life as a process.
Absolutely, I am.
Yeah.
We view life as a process. So my brain state and all the chemicals and all the electrons firing and all of that stuff, that is an integral part of who Eric Murphy is.
Okay, so that's life to you then.
You shut that off. The meat is there, but Eric is not, because the state of being alive is the same as V's example of a car running, right? We're not talking about whether or not the car exists. We're telling you our bodies exist and that we live in a world that exists, right? Those things are real. Right. But when you're talking about living, it would be the same as driving. It would be that doing of the thing. When
Car is
So
working.
then life.
Yeah.
So then you're telling me that life is not real.
I'm telling you that life is a concept.
That describes functioning bodies that
Right.
have not ceased to function yet, and we call that life.
In the same way that the number 1 is a concept. Do you think that numbers are real?
Well, they're not. They're not made of anything. No, I mean they're like you said, they're concepts.
Sure.
We use them to basically explain what's going on in front of us, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
You know.
Okay, so let's clip that, and that's the answer. What is life? It is a concept that we're using to describe a process and that we can use to better describe this series of things, right? It is the process of having a form and existing in this way, that this is a living body, and in living I am alive. When I stop living, I will no longer be alive. That doesn't mean that life has to be this. The way you're saying real, it has this all or nothing quality. But you have to understand, we live with abstract concepts because we're creatures that can think in abstract ways. That doesn't mean anything that of value. It just means that this is how we understand it. So when you say, well, if you don't live on forever, it's not real. Can you see why we're disconnecting?
Well, the real is real to me. I mean, I don't.
So
concepts
is the number 1
real?
Got it. Okay,
No.
then using your definition, I will agree life is not real.
There you go. Okay,
Cool.
so then what is the value of life then?
Well, it's definitely not worth money, apparently.
Well, it's not worth money, but that doesn't. Money's not the only kind of value. There's different kinds of value in there.
Okay, so so you're moving from is to ought, and I get that. Why would you not? Sure. So according to your definition, something has to be eternal to be real, and it has to be existent and not a concept.
No.
Okay, help me.
It doesn't have to. What do you mean? It doesn't have to be eternal.
Well,
I mean, you can't. I mean, you look at the, at the singularity there. When we talk about the big one, what was there? It wasn't anything that exists now.
so where are you drawing your line?
I'm saying that what is real is real. It exists.
So, Steve?
The things that are in the physical world that we live in it's constantly changing.
Right.
It's here today and it's gone tomorrow.
Right.
So to say that something is real is not to say that a car is real, not because it's a car, but because of what it has, because it has some kind of substance to it. There's something about it.
Well, we as humans tend to label things based on the function they serve. Whether or not that's good or bad is irrelevant at this moment, but we tend to do that. The only reason we call a car is because of what the car does. We're not describing inherent properties of the metal or the mechanics.
Right.
As long as it does the thing we agree on, which is drive us places, it's a car. And once it stops doing that, it ceases to be a car.
We can imagine a situation where I say, hey, Steve, I invented something. I created it. Come take a look. It's a car. And you go, no, Eric, it's a toaster. Well, how did you determine that it's not a car? Because it toasts bread. In that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That it has to do with the way something looks. It's not necessarily what it's made out of specifically. Like we don't say that a car is a bunch of atoms.
Right.
Right.
Even though that's what it is. I mean, you could boil everything. If we wouldn't be able to describe anything. If we did that, we'd just say, well, there's a bunch of atoms there, and there's a bunch of atoms there, and there's a bunch of atoms over there.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
we get nowhere that way.
I agree. And I think the problem
we
is,
identify
Steve,
things by the way they look.
Steve?
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem here is the word real. Mm-hmm. In the same way that you're saying, oh, that's a bunch of atoms, we're really unable to have any deeper conversation. We're not able to describe things in a way that's useful if we just call things a bunch of atoms, right? We have specific words that we use to be able to convey concepts. When you're using the word real, it's wiggly and it's fluffy and it's hard to pin down. And that's where I'm falling off the track. Each time when you jump into it's not real, that's where I fall off. Mm-hmm. What about you, V?
Yeah, I think that within this situation, we should define real first and what real is and what unreal is. And then maybe we can have a conversation within those boundaries. But real might mean something very different to me than it does to Eric and you.
Okay. Well, okay. The way I understand when I'm talking about something is real, I'm talking about something that has substance, something that has something about it, a solidity, some kind of substance to it.
Our soul's real.
Our soul's real.
Yeah.
I believe they are.
What is the substance to it?
I don't know they are because there's nothing I can tell you about them other than...
Okay, then you've given me a useless concept. As soon as the idea of a soul has any kind of use or function whatsoever, we'll talk about it. But if there's nothing that you can give about it, it is pointless, useless. You might as well be creating, some invented... What's the point?
If something needs to have substance to be real, and yet souls are non-physical, then by your logic, souls can't be real, right?
Let's repeat that one more time, slower.
Okay. So just going back to kind of some things you said earlier, you just gave the definition of real to mean something that has a substance of some kind.
Right.
Okay. And you also earlier said that souls are non-physical and have no detectable substance.
Right.
So does that mean that souls are not real because they don't have substance and you need substance to make something real?
No, it doesn't mean that they're not. Just because I can't detect something doesn't mean that it's not real. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have substance. It just simply means that I don't know. There's no way for me to describe anything about it.
Yeah, and
specifically.
There's a hole in that thinking that I can drive a Mack truck through. The hole in that thinking is, okay, so can't detect it. It doesn't have this substance that you're hinging reality on.
Right.
And yet you are willing to accept something that does not fit that definition because you can't say it's not. Do you understand why I could drive a Mack truck through that?
Well, I can understand that.
Sure. Steve,
yes,
I have $10 million in my bank account.
What you're saying.
I just told you, does that make that true? Right?
Okay.
Does that mean that it's true until you prove me wrong?
No. It just means that I can't prove it, and.
Steve, do you know what cognitive dissonance is?
Yeah, I've heard the term.
It's something that I have experienced a ton. It's something that happens to a lot of us, and I think I'm looking at a live studio audience who is nodding along because most of us found our way out of religion and at some point had to come to face the fact that we were holding two ideas in our head that could not both exist at the same time. Some of us believed that, I've been convinced of the process of evolution, and at the same time, God created all things in the way that they are. And when you hold on to them, it is uncomfortable and rough.
It's exhausting.
And I want to give you some affirmation that there's nothing wrong with this. Recognizing it and working through it is something that is valuable to us. Mm-hmm. We encourage you to chew on it.
Okay,
Take your time.
All right. Well, I just, maybe it's because I can't. Maybe I see because I see life and the soul as one, the same. You can enter.
Is
when you
life
talk
real?
about one, you're talking about the other.
Okay, so then let's get rid of the idea of real and just talk about life, or talk about, get rid of life and talk about real. Right now, what those do is it just makes the water muddy. But
Well,
and I mean,
okay, I understand. Okay, so
Yeah.
so let's talk about life. You see life as a process.
yeah.
Okay, and I see life as potential.
What? Why?
Because life is what gives us the ability, and life gives us the potential to do things.
But
I'm
Steve,
sitting. If neither one of us were alive, if one of us wasn't alive, we wouldn't be talking to each other. We have the potential to talk to each other because we're alive.
You're talking to an amateur craftsman. I have gotten into and love metalworking, and when I see a piece of steel, I mean. Tool grade high carbon steel, something that I can melt down and make into, if you wanted to make a knife and it would be sharp and hold that edge. Oh my gosh, if you wanted to, and I see that and I see potential there. Does that mean that metal is alive? Or that a wood carver would see a piece of wood as alive? Or a...
No.
Okay.
No, not unless that metal can make itself. You see, life.
Did you make yourself?
Positive life.
And you're adding more on to life now. You're now giving it more definitions. So now it's something that has substance and creates itself.
No, it doesn't create it. It creates itself. Okay.
Well, no, I'm using your definition.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it has to be life. Life is constructive. Life is a positive. It adds to. It's constructive. You see, I mean that's the way I see it.
I don't.
At the moment of my conception, if life had failed, I wouldn't be here. There would be no first cell.
And
you see?
No, I don't. Because you're now giving an explanation to something that absolutely has no cause for explanation or any explanatory value. You just gave here's what it is. What the fuck are you talking about? I care about you, Steve, as a person, but what the fuck does that mean? Without life, there would be no cells. When mommies and daddies love each other very much, right? We know that we know the birds and the bees talk. That's where cells come from.
Yeah.
Where is this intangible quality? It's maddening. You're wiggling all around it. And the only place that we have that really sits there in our experience is cognitive dissonance. That's where we can relate. You want to wiggle out. Hold yourself to a higher standard. You deserve it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for calling in, Steve. Take care.
I was not going to get drawn into the life begins at conception thing.
Nope.
I was going to leave that where it was.
So people in the live chat were talking about nihilism. And I'm absolutely, down with absurdism and this positive nihilist approach that, I don't think that there's some grand scheme of which I'm a part and that I've been created to play this pivotal role. Does that mean that my life isn't worth living? Well, maybe not to you, but it is to me. I give it value. I can go to the grocery store and say, you know what? I'm going to die and be forgotten someday. I think I'm going to go for the low-calorie English muffins. And it's something that is interesting, but it's the value that we give it. Mm-hmm. And what I've heard from so many people is this idea that, well, unless it has this outside value given to it, it is not of value. Well, why is that the case?
Or if it's not eternal, it doesn't have value.
Right.
That's exactly the opposite of everything we use to function. The only reason money is worth anything is because there's a limited supply of it.
And even then, you're talking about an abstract concept.
Right, exactly.
So it just doesn't, it doesn't fit. But
I mean, I could have talked on that call all day and just followed in circles.
Well, I totally talked over you. I'm sorry. I'm going to give you more chance on the next call.
That is okay.
Wow. Yeah, no. If there's anything to take from it that's positive, you are the value giver. when it comes to those things in your life that you take care of, the people that you love, and the things that you do. I come in here every day because I see value in this. That's enough. That is real.